Today's workshop is HireAbility Pre-ETS Services in Vermont Schools. I'm excited to introduce you to Kara Haynes, HireAbility Transition Program Manager, Tia Tallman, HireAbility Transition Counselor in Morrisville, and Diane Knishel, HireAbility Transition Counselor in Bennington. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you all and welcome to today. There's going to be a lot of information on the slides and I promise I won't read them all. But today we are going to talk about pre-employment transition services, which we will refer to as PreETS, Pre-ETS. Next slide. So I am Kara Haynes. I'm the HireAbility Transition Program Manager. So I oversee and support the programs of HireAbility that serve youth ages 14 to 25. Diane and Tia, did you want to introduce yourself and tell us about the schools that you cover?
Sure. I'm Diane Knishel. I'm Senior Transition Counselor down here in Bennington. I work in the Mount Anthony Union High School. And I think that's it.
And I'm Tia Haynes. I'm an associate senior counselor in Morrisville, and I oversee Memorial Union High School as well as youth in the railway program and Meadow, and the Mountain Technical Career Center, as well as youth out of school up to the age of 25.
Awesome. Next slide.
Yeah, Tia, you're coming across a little
Muffled.
garbled, so I'm not quite sure.
Tia supports primarily Lemuel Union High School as well as the local tech center there in Morrisville or Hyde Park, as well as serving out of school youth, is what she was saying. So we wanted to start with a little bit of general information. So HireAbility supports Vermonters ages 14 and older. We work with people who wish to gain, retain, advance in, or regain employment. Social Security, both SSI and SSDI beneficiaries are automatically eligible for our services. Vermont has no means test, so we don't look at the means of a family or the participant prior to them receiving services. And for context, roughly half of HireAbility participants, so about 2,500 folks a year, are under the age of 25 and supported by either a transition counselor or one of our jobs program managers. Next slide. So HireAbility, we wanted to highlight our structure just to give some context. So we have 25 transition counselors around the state. That's between 1 and 3 in each of our AHS districts. Those transition counselors are partnered with 25 youth employment specialists who partner alongside transition counselors to provide employment exploration services. We also have 6 PreETS coordinators, which we are launching this fall. And then all of our transition counselors, youth employment specialists, and PreETS coordinators support students and teams in the high schools that they are assigned to. So there's 54 high schools primarily around the state, with also additional public, independent, private, residential, and therapeutic programs related to them. And all of them are assigned a specific transition counselor in their local region. And we work with youth starting in high school as young as age 14 and after they graduate high school up through the age of 24. So next slide. So how does one access HireAbility? So youth on IEP plans or 504s are considered presumed eligible for services. And so when students are in high school, they are primarily referred to the transition counselor in their area through their special educator, their school counselor, their 504 coordinator, or their work-based learning coordinator. And this can happen at any time after age 14, but due to the IEP planning process, generally happens the year somebody turns 16 as part of their transition plan. But that is not to say that's the only source of a referral. So a referral can also come from the student themselves, a family member, a counselor, audiologist, pediatricians, really anybody who would have knowledge of the person's disability and could provide documentation or tell us where documentation could be located to support the disability diagnosis that would qualify them to work with HireAbility. Next slide. So the reason you've all come, you are desperate to hear about PreETS. So there are 5 core services that we refer to as PreETS. So that's job exploration counseling, work-based learning experiences, post-secondary education and training counseling, workplace readiness training, and then instruction and self-advocacy. I will go into detail about all of these services, but I just want to note that some of these you may hear like, wow, we do that in school, or wait, who does that? And oh, wow, some of these sound similar to something you said on the last slide. Yes. So all of these services, they are not designed to be silos into themselves. They are designed to be interconnected. Things that you'll talk about in job exploration counseling, you'll also probably talk about in workplace readiness, because you can't explore a job without building skills to be ready for it. So if it seems duplicative, it's because there are some things that fall in multiple buckets. And we always want to remember that the schools are our partner in this work. And when we think about the partnership between education and HireAbility, we want it to be just that, a partnership. There are things that are black and white that the school is supposed to provide, and there are things that are black and white that HireAbility is providing, and everything else is a conversation about how are we going to support this youth to have the most successful transition possible, with who provides the service and who funds the service. All of those things are individual conversations for a team. So I just wanted to lay that baseline before we go to the next slide. So starting off strong with job exploration counseling. So this is to help students identify their career interests and explore potential career options. So that could be assessments, exploring different career paths, building your resume, working with schools, working with parents. But the purpose of job exploration counseling is really to increase the student's self-awareness, encourage informed decision-making, create some confidence that a student is on the right career path, and to start preparing them for the workforce. Next slide. Work-based learning experiences. I consider this to be one of the most important of the PreETS, because this is one of the ones that has the most research supporting that youth who have access and engage in work-based learning experiences while they are in high school, research tells us that they have a much higher likelihood of being able to work independently and be financially self-sustaining into adulthood if they have access to these services while they're still in high school. So it's a really important one. But work-based learning experiences, or WBL, provides real-world exposure to work environments and opportunities to practice skills needed for employment. So that's skill development, that's paid work experiences, internships, pre-apprenticeships could all fall into this. It's to increase confidence, independence, to build professional relationships. So develop mentorships, find other people who do what they want to do so they can learn from them, and also practice advocating for their own accommodations, and understanding what it's like to be in the workforce before you are under the pressure of being an employee and have to perform as such. And research also says that work-based learning can lead to improved academic and employment outcomes, higher graduation rates, higher employment rates, and an overall smoother transition to employment in adulthood. Next. Post-secondary education. This is a personal and professional passion of us at HireAbility. 2024 is the year of the credential. So post-secondary education exploration is really just that. What do you want to do after high school, and what training and education can be part of that plan? So it's to help students understand educational requirements for different careers and navigate all the different pathways for achieving those career goals as it relates to education. So exploring college or university, whether it's a vocational school or a technical school, is the best option. Apprenticeships and any supported transition programs. It's helping them talk to the disability accommodation office or know what that is at their university, to help them they and their families understand the difference between an IEP in high school and a 504 at a school outside of their public high school system, helping them connect with folks who can help with disability-specific scholarships, government supports. So we have a team, I almost said fleet, a team of certified work incentive counselors, formerly known as benefits counselors, who can help students utilize things like students who are receiving Social Security access things like PASS plans and ABLE savings accounts to help fund their college education if that is their choice. And then in independent living skills, we also support programs like Project Search, which is a transition employment program, College Steps, College Compass. Those are all programs that have supported education embedded in them, along with strong partnerships with CCV and the Vermont State University system to help students access dual enrollment and supports there. Next slide. Workplace readiness. I feel like this could arguably be almost as important as work-based learning. It's to develop the soft skills and independent living skills to prepare students for life after high school. When you're maybe not necessarily on the routine of waking up every day at a certain time and going to school, how do you scaffold the skills to wake up on your own, to get to where you need to be, to remember your schedule, to talk to your boss? So those are all things that they're skills, then you have to learn them. So soft skills, technical skills, life skills, asking for your accommodations, legal support. So again, work incentive counseling could fall in here. And then also if it's somebody who struggles with emotional regulation or mental health, it might be what are some job-specific coping skills we need to work on, and how can you be a good advocate for yourself in the workplace. And so really, we feel like by addressing these areas, youth with disabilities can be better prepared to enter the workforce and tolerate stress and navigate challenges to be successful in the workforce. Next slide. Self-advocacy, also incredibly important. And this can come through school, this can come through HireAbility, this can come through our employment partners at Weber. We also partner with the Vermont Center for Independent Living to provide some self-advocacy workshops for students. So this is really to teach students with disabilities how to speak up for themselves, to understand their rights, and to request the accommodations they are entitled to and need to succeed. And so this can be about helping the student develop their own sense of what self-advocacy is and why it's important, developing communication skills and listening skills, understanding what they need as an accommodation in different settings. What they need at school may not be what they need at work, and how do they know the difference and how do they communicate those things? And really developing confidence and resilience. Sometimes disability pride would fall into this category. And one thing that is kind of a passion and is part of a grant that Vermont currently has is helping students advocate for themselves in school settings, and participating and or leading their IEP meetings would be a great thing to see around the state. So self-advocacy is an essential skill. And so that's why it's one of our 5 core services for preparing youth to enter the workforce. Next slide. We wanted to talk about our summer career exploration program because it is one of the core services of HireAbility, and it is comprised primarily of PreETS services. So during the summer, transition counselors around the state recruit and enroll students who have at least 1 year of high school left, who want to be part of the summer program. So it's a 5-week program, which combines a paid work experience, so a work-based learning opportunity, with 5 classroom sessions, which teach workplace readiness, career exploration, and self-advocacy development work. And it matches students to employers in their area, and provides support staff and needed things to help folks who, who might have extra levels of challenge to be successful in their first job. Next slide. So there's some resources. So the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition, it's a collaborative, so NTAC-C, has created a side-by-side comparison of PreETS services, vocational rehabilitation, individualized transition services, and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. So if you ever wanted to geek out and do a deep dive on the side-by-side comparison of who should be doing what and what type of things overlap, that's the place to go. And then also I've included the links to the Vermont Family Network, where we have our repository of information about local core transition teams, the Transition to Adulthood Toolkit, and all the recorded webinars. Next. And then there's our, how do you contact us? So our website is there, my email is there, and then if you ever want to know who the local transition counselor is in your area, the HireAbility Vermont /get started will get you in contact with local district staff. Next. And I ended with this slide because some folks may still call us Voc Rehab, which we were for many years, but about 2.5 years ago, we made the conscious decision to change to HireAbility, which we felt really spoke much more kindly. It resonates much more with youth. Rehab in our cultural vernacular did not really hit with teenagers in a positive way. And so we are lucky that we are able to highlight ability in our work with youth, and youth are much more responsive to our rebrand. So those are all the slides that we have for you today. And now we would love to answer some questions.
So please feel free to turn on your camera, unmute yourself if you'd like to ask any questions. I'll go ahead and start with one that I do see in the chat. And that one reads, how would a student connect with a benefits counselor regarding SSI and working?
That's a great question.
Yep.
So if the student already has a case of any sort open with a HireAbility counselor, it's a simple referral process. So the HireAbility counselor can refer to, so we call them CWIC, so CWIC, Certified Work Incentive Counselors. And there's one in every region for a total of 6 around the state. And if they are not working with a HireAbility counselor, I would suggest that they start, because we are very helpful. But there's also a benefits counseling hotline. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but you can find it on our website, where that is staffed by one of our CWICs during working hours, and they can answer kind of general benefits information, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to get into the details of a specific situation, but could probably give general feedback. For youth that receive benefits, the important things to think about are ABLE accounts, task plans, and the student earned income exclusion, all of which our CWICs are well versed on explaining to students and their families.
So with all the PreETS services that are offered in schools, what would be the format that students might expect to see them take? Are these sort of one-on-one? Are there small group? Are there specific classes?
Yes, to all of those. I mean, it depends on the student and it depends on the school. There are times where, thank you, Diane, for putting the HireAbility hotline in the chat. So 802-863-7500 is the number. It depends on the school, it depends on the student, it depends sometimes on the disability type about how we would approach PreETS services. There is the option for one-on-one PreETS services with either the transition counselor, school staff, or the youth employment specialist from Weber. But there's also, I think, at least half of our transition counselors engage in some form of group work where they push in every month, on some sort of schedule into classrooms where they've been invited by a special educator to present a curriculum of some sort to students.
So do the transition counselors work closely with the special education staff in a school to provide these services?
Tia and Diane, this is their day to day, so I'll let one of them jump in about what that looks like in a high school.
Yeah, I think it's super important for us to have that relationship with the special educators and the administration so that everybody knows what our purpose is. So I know for me, it's making sure that I'm reconnecting with staff that I've already known, going to staff meetings for the special educators, and just making my presence known, constantly fostering relationships. So yeah, it's definitely a big part of what we do. We couldn't do the work we are doing right now if it wasn't for the staff that we work with within the school system.
There are questions in the chat that I will read. What advice would you give to a family who is having difficulty connecting with the transition counselor at school? Who should they be in touch with if they would like to connect with them?
I would say you could reach out to the regional manager in the district office. So we recently had some vacancies, but all but one of them is filled. So I would say the advice I would give if it's anywhere but the Springfield region is call the, or rather reverse that. If it's in the Springfield area, call the regional manager. Her name is Alicia White and she is covering for some schools. But for all the other regions, I would say use the link on that slide to go to the website and just connect with the local office and call them directly. Many of our referrals come from schools. Much of our time in schools is spent meeting with students, but we also have offices. We can meet with students outside of school and also their families as well. We are not bound by meeting with students exclusively in school. And if you still have trouble after trying to reach out to the regional manager, reach out to me and I can try and problem solve what's going on.
I have another question here. My child lives in Franklin County, but goes to school in Chittenden County. Can they access PreETS services from either or both?
Yes. So we generally do high school designation by, or case assignment rather, by where the student attends school. So they would work with the transition counselor where they attend school. But if you would prefer to receive student research services outside of the school setting, then you could, of course, work with the area where you reside. We serve, like, Vermont students go to high schools in New York State, in Massachusetts, in New Hampshire. So we have partnerships across districts and across county lines, even across state lines, to serve our students kind of no matter where they go. But you as a parent could choose either office in that circumstance.
Okay, I'd just like to point out to folks that we have a survey link in the chat, and we have found this works best, but if I give you a minute to perhaps pull up the link and fill out the survey, and then we can resume questions maybe after that. So I'll just give you a minute to click on the link and do the evaluation. Really appreciate doing the evaluations. It does help all of us to get input into what you feel about the workshop and also to make improvements. Okay, thanks for taking the time to do the evaluation. Again, please feel free to turn on your camera and ask any questions, unmute yourself. So I do have a question, Tara. So from what you have shared, it looks like PreETS could look different from school to school, depending on, I'm thinking, the relationship between HireAbility and the school or the needs of the students.
Yeah, I think it depends on the size of the school, the services that are needed. I think some schools have a very robust work-based learning structure. Some schools have work-based learning structures, but aren't necessarily um, robust for students with uh, moderate to significant disabilities. And so, like there's always some negotiation about where um, about how PreETS should be delivered or can be delivered. And like a school that has several hundred students who are all receiving PreETS services is going to look different than a school that has 40 students that might need that service and how we provide it. So that might be more one-on-one instruction tailored to students' unique needs. As an agency, our commitment is to more match the level of need to the level of service. So folks who have a higher level of need, so students who um, are likely to be eligible for developmental services after high school, students with significant emotional disturbances or major mental health disorders, we have more intensive programming and identification processes for those populations. And so those students may receive more one-on-one instruction, whereas students who have are able to receive PreETS in a group setting are more likely to receive those in a group setting.
And do you
Diane
have
and Tia,
any idea,
jump in if I.
Oh, go on.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Karen.
So do you have any idea of the percentage of students who would be eligible for HireAbility services are in
Uh,
fact actively, right, receiving these services?
um, I don't I don't know the exact percentage of who is actually receiving services. At the end of the last school year, the Agency of Ed told us that there are about 6,900 students on IEPs and 504 plans around the state. So they would fall in the presumed eligible category. There are more students than that who would also qualify for our services through if they have a disability but not on a plan. We also work with people in addition to um, sensory disorders, cognitive and intellectual disabilities, learning disabilities. We also work with people with chronic health conditions. So at times we've worked with people with severe and life-threatening allergies, migraine disorders, seizure disorders, things that impact their ability to enter the workforce and maintain employment without support, but may not necessarily impact them in their school setting. And so may not result in an IEP or a 504. So probably there's definitely over 7,000 potentially eligible students in the state, and we serve total, the 14 to 25 population is about 2,500. So less than that is in high school. So we serve probably less than a third of those we could. But percentage wise, generally somewhere between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 folks have a disability of some sort and could potentially be eligible for HireAbility services.
And for the youth who are not in public school, but in independent schools or in home study programs or alternative educational placements, how do you reach those kids, youth?
So if they're in an alternative program, as referred by their school districts, many of our transition counselors have a presence in alternative school programs around the state. So I'd say that there are 54 high schools in the state, and then every transition counselor also serves between 1 and 5 alternative programs are that nearly all of the students are eligible for our services. And those can be for developmental services or autism specific programs, severe emotional disturbance, harmful behaviors, all of those type of things. And our transition counselors visit those programs regularly. Home study is a little bit harder because the Agency of Education, there's not a case manager to refer. So for that, we rely on families or pediatricians or other community providers who are in contact with that student and their family to be aware of our services and potentially connect us. But as I said, a family can self-refer at any time. And we do definitely work with home study students around the state.
Okay, are there any other questions? Again, feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions you want to ask, or put it in the chat. Okay, well, thank you very much to Cara, Tia, and Diane for being with us today. That was a lot of information. So we have
talk fast, I apologize.
But we will have this as a resource. So if anyone wants to rewatch, to go over what Cara said, you will all get an email with the link to this recording. So we have many more interesting workshops coming up, and you can find details about those on the homepage of our website, which is vermontfamilynetwork.org, along with the links to the previously recorded ones. We have tons of information on our website. Getting connected with us is easy. You can follow us on Facebook or join our closed Facebook page if you are a parent. You can also sign up for monthly e-newsletters or check out our YouTube channel. We are here to help. So please contact us by phone or email. So thank you again, everyone, for attending, and have a great day.